obviously I am now the biggest Elden Ring hater on the planet, right? Quantum TV has discredited himself by being a complete incompetent buffoon, so it's up to me to kind of lead the charge, to emphasize that no, this game is not very good, you're stupid for liking it, and that there are better alternatives out there. Most specifically, Nintendo products. Like, there is no real defending Elden Ring in any way, shape, or form. It's not a very good game. And I think the major thing that really needs to be talked about, that really needs to be addressed, is just the sheer delusions that people have about the game's success, right? The big thing that people always do, this is the biggest game release of the generation, they'll tell you. This is the best-selling game ever. Like, this is the reason to own a PS5, even though it's available on PS4 and Xbox One. Like, this is, like, the best game that's come out in recent years. This is the best game ever made. Like, people will throw all these weird, nonsensical, like, claims at you. But the one that really gets me, and I've seen this put forward a couple of times, is that, like, Elden Ring is the biggest media property of the new 20s, right? When people look back on, like, the 2020s, they're going to think back, oh, that's when Elden Ring came out. That was the biggest thing to come out. Like, Elden Ring's not that big, okay? Like, you need to get over yourselves. Like, this happened when the game first came out, too, where they did this thing where they tried pretending that Elden Ring was the most successful new IP ever, which is completely ridiculous when you think back to, like, Pokemon was at one point a new IP. Mario was at one point a new IP. Like, Elden Ring's not that big, bro. Like, it just sold a bunch of copies for this one-off release. It's not going to, it's the Skyrim of this generation, right? Where it's going to be, like, it's iconic for certain people, but for people who don't play a lot of video games, who don't really venture outside their little narrow bubble, right? People who don't know very much about them, right? Like, Elden Ring is just going to fall off the face of the map, much like Skyrim did. Bethesda was never able to recapture Skyrim's success and relevancy, and I think FromSoft is in the same boat. So the idea that the series that has no real momentum behind it, it has no story, it has no memorable characters, it has no merch, it has no spin-off material, it has no sequels. The DLC even was poorly received. Like, to think this is the biggest media IP in history is completely laughably insane, right? It is completely off base with how this stuff actually works, and how this is going to remain relevant. Like, Elden Ring is going to end up like Dark Souls, right? Where it's going to get a bunch of sequels that do progressively worse, that get progressively less popular, and then FromSoft is just going to reboot it with something else, right? It's going to be the same thing over and over and over again, right? Like, it's going to be the same thing they did from Demon Souls to Dark Souls to Elden Ring, right? Like, it's going to be the same pattern. And progressively, people are going to lose interest in it. And I think the big thing people really do need to realize is that, like, Elden Ring is not really a new IP. Like, when you have, like, identical mechanics to your previous series, like, again, would you call, like, Mario and Luigi, like, a new IP from, like, the Mario IP? No. Like, it's a spin-off series, right? From the same developers, with the same mechanics, etc. Like, again, what makes Elden Ring a different IP from Souls, other than the fact that the mechanics are slightly different and it's in a different setting, right? Like, what's different about it? It even has the same publisher, Bandai Namco. So, like, what even makes, like, Elden Ring a new IP? Like, it just doesn't work that way, right? You can't make something identical to something else you've already made and try to say, like, oh, this is a completely new thing. No, it's not. And it's this kind of ridiculous, like, logic that really makes me, like, detest Elden Ring fans. Like, it really makes me, like, feel like they are, like, they're the Harry Potter fans of the gaming world. You know how, like, 10 years ago it was a thing for, like, whiny liberals to, like, use Harry Potter to, like, weaponize their political arguments online, and, like, it became a common right-wing talking point, like, read another book. I love Harry Potter, but, like, I really do agree with that assessment that, like, Harry Potter was weaponized for political purposes. Like, Elden Ring is the same way, right? People don't play other games, And they make all these ridiculous claims to try and pretend that Elden Ring is superior. Like pretending the game is hard, or that it has a good story, or memorable, interesting characters, or that it's better than Dark Souls, or distinct from Dark Souls even. They what exactly about Elden Ring is so interesting and special that makes it better than its competitors? There really is nothing there. When I played Elden Ring last week, I haven't really played it in a couple of days, several days. I haven't played it in a while, but when I played it, I was just yeah, Monster Hunter is better, Monkey Ball is better, Final Fantasy V is better. Those are just games I've been playing recently, right? So Zelda is better. Just off the top of my head, I was listing off all these games that are oh yeah, this is more difficult. This has better mechanics. This is a better RPG, right? This has a better story. This is better setting and characters and themes. What does Elden Ring do that's spectacular? I have never really seen anybody make a good argument as to what makes Elden Ring great. There's been a lot of Metal Gear Solid 4, actually, when that came out on PS3, and everybody was saying oh, this is the only reason I want to. You can't say that PS3 has no games anymore. PlayStation like a brand didn't have any more games after that. But anyway, Metal Gear Solid 4 was it was impossible to go after Metal Gear Solid 4 for a long time, because Kojima was at the height of his relevancy. People were worshipping him. People weren't really acknowledging the real problems like Konami, how they stopped producing games that weren't Metal Gear, how Metal Gear games themselves were getting worse and worse, how they were increasingly convoluted, how Solid 4 wasn't very good, right? Again, all these problems culminated in the release of Metal Gear Solid 5, which was mid, and then Kojima left the company, and now he's doing the Death Stranding thing, which thankfully he's now at the point where people are willing to call him on his nonsense. But back in 2010, you could not do that. Metal Gear Solid 4 got a 10 out of 10 for IGN, and nobody batted an eye. Of course it got a 10 out of 10. Metal Gear Solid 4. To me, Metal Gear Solid 4 is a way more blatant example of blind fanboy worship compared to something like The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess, which people made fun of Zelda fans being upset over scores for that game being kind of low. But at least Twilight has Twilight is a good game, right? There are real arguments to be had about Twilight Princess not being good, but people talked about it. They addressed them, and they resulted in far better sequels, right? I love Princess, and so it doesn't have any problems. Why can Elden fans not do the same thing for Elden Ring? Why are they so religiously incapable of processing the fact that people might not like the game? Why are they so vehemently opposed to it? This is a real issue with the community, with FromSoft as a formula. Every time someone comes and says he doesn't like the game, oh, you got filtered. No, I haven't actually. I just don't enjoy it. Again, what is hard to process about that? Why can you not understand that people do not enjoy Elden?